Hi guys, Shabbat Shalom. So I'm a little excited about this one because I think Parashat Truma contains in it one of the greatest secrets in the entirety of the Torah and how to live an actually deeply satisfied internal state of joy and peace. And it does this just in a few words. It's really clever. So the overall context is that God wants Bnei Israel to build for God a sanctuary in the desert, a dwelling space. And he wants all of Bnei Israel to participate in the building of the sanctuary by contributing materials, gold, fabric, jewelry to this entity. And let's go to the pasuk itself. What does God say to Moses? Vayedaber Adonai el Moshe lemor, דבר אל בני ישראל, ויקחו לי תרומה. God speaks to Moses and says, speak to Bnei Israel, speak to Israel, and tell them, take for me a truma, a contribution. Truma, I think like the closest translation would be contribution. So take for me a contribution. And these three words are everything. So one of the first questions to ask is, why is it phrased vaikhu li truma? Why is it phrased take for me a truma? Wouldn't it be easier and more flowy to just say, tell them to give me a donation. Give me a donation, not take for me a donation. Why did it say vaikhu li truma? I think this hits at what I consider one of the greatest paradoxes in existence. It's this idea that when you give, you get. In fact, the more you give, the more you feel like you're receiving. So in this case of Bnei Israel contributing and giving, they're actually taking something. They're taking something. And the next question is, like, what is it? How does that happen? How do you engage in this flow of energy that in giving you receive? So it's hinted in the word for contribution. The word is truma. Truma has in it the letters resh, vav, mem, which is rom in Hebrew. And rom means elevate. So the word for contribution has in it, or references it within it, this idea or feeling of elevation, lifting up. Okay, so what is going on here? We engage in a very material and physical world. We are dealing on a day-to-day level with money, with food, with physical human relationships, physical human contact. It is a material world and it is a physical world. And I find, and actually our brains are wired for this, that when you engage in the pursuit of materiality for the ego, meaning for yourself, whether it's for a sense of validation, whether because you think having a piece of clothing or having more money validates you or gives you status in a certain way, when you're in the pursuit of materiality for yourself alone, you experience this sort of irrational phenomena that the more you get and the more you consume, the emptier you feel and the more you need next time to reach the same baseline. So you eat, and like actually your stomach expands and you need more food next time to feel full. With sugar releases dopamine in our brain at at an accelerated pace, and then you crash and you need more sugar next time to generate more dopamine to get back to that same feeling, to get back to baseline. So it's kind of fascinating, but the more you consume, in a weird way, the emptier you feel and the more you need of that thing to feel okay again. It's really interesting, actually. The Buddhists have a concept that really expresses this, that I've always been obsessed with, this concept of the hungry ghost. So the Buddhists believe in reincarnation, and they believe that you come back in the next life as a form or specimen that reflects your behavior in your life before. And one of the lowest tier specimens that you could return as is this species called a hungry ghost. You should look it up. This thing kind of looks like a creepy beast. It looks really scraggly and bony, and at the same time has this like massive, huge stomach. And its whole vibe is that the more it eats, the emptier it feels. Like it has this huge stomach because nothing ever satisfies it, nothing ever fills it up. So you come back as a hungry ghost, sort of as a punishment for your behavior in a past life. Now, how do you move away from this phenomena, right? Like, how do you move away from this experience of consuming and feeling empty and needing more? This is where Teruma comes in. When you consciously engage with the physical and material world and think about that engagement, and think about how to get closer to God through it, which often comes back to sharing with another human being, then you actually kind of experience the opposite phenomena. When you take money and give it to charity, or when you take money and buy a gift for your friend, or when you take money and really invest in the beautification of a mitzvah, you'll notice this really interesting thing happens where you feel high afterwards. There's just sort of kind of like, there's a high and it's quiet, it's not loud, and it actually really sustains itself. So even though you're parting with something that is yours, you're parting with money, you're actually feeling more full in that parting. We see this also with consumption of food, right? Like we're eating all day. We're eating oftentimes without realizing it. But in Judaism, we say a bracha, we say a blessing before the food. When you eat a fruit, you say, blessed is he who creates the tree. Now, these blessings are not an expression of gratitude. They are an acknowledgement that this material item, this physical apple, came from God. And suddenly you're no longer just eating an apple, you're connecting with the awareness that everything comes from the divine. And the experience of eating that apple changes. So I think therein lies the magic in Parashat Truma. It's this whole idea that when you give, you actually receive. And not only do you receive in a much more kind of sustained way than when you take for yourself. And this is hinted at in just a few psukim later. God says, or the Torah says, "V'asu li mikdash," and they will make for me a sanctuary. "V'shachanti betocham," and I will dwell inside of them. It's not that I will dwell in the sanctuary, I will dwell inside of them. And that's the whole idea. When you consciously elevate the physical and material by engaging in spiritual acts with that physical and material, you create a place in the physical world and in yourself for God to dwell. And I can't think of anything more satisfying or I can't think of anything that feels more inner peace and inner satisfaction than connecting to the divine within yourself. So that's the core essence of this parasha. And I hope everyone takes a little bit of inspiration from this and maybe engages in just a little bit more giving in the coming days and see how it feels. See what happens when you share or give a gift. Shabbat Shalom.